Good morning, Sam.
Good morning, Lamar. How are you today?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Good, good.
Okay, so just as an introduction, this is Limor Abbas from Peerlyst, interviewing today Sam Davis, the VP of Business Development and Technology Alliances at Securonix. We are doing this as part of a series of executives with security vendors. The purpose of this series is to allow you and other vendors to introduce us and our user base to your company in a very genuine and personal way that's not presented by any stakeholders. Just to clarify, Peerlyst is not being paid for this interview. We just want to get to know the company and give you a stage that's very organic. So to start, Sam, please tell us a bit about your background, yourself, and how did you get to do business development?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I started switched into sales in like 1982. I was got into just the type of sales I was doing then was component sales. It was kind of pre-computer, and as I evolved, it was about I think it was in the 90s is when I switched into software. So I started with, I was in the network space, which was like Micromuse, then worked with Norris, and then evolved, segued into the security industry, and started working with the likes of Arbor and Landcope, ArcSight, and Forescout. So I've been the vice president of business development for Forescout. At ArcSight, I set up their technology partner program in 08 to about 11, and I built that program up, and it became one of the largest technology partner programs around. So that's one of the things that I've done there. Then evolved over to, as I said, Forescout, and was the vice president of business development over there, and then I evolved and did my own business for about 3 years, helping different companies do different business development and channel, that type of thing, and then had the opportunity to come over here to Securonix and build out their partner program and their business development. So I'm in year 2 here. We're in the process of building out our technology partner program and evolving our channel and managed service business. So that's what I'm doing.
Great. That's great. So tell us a bit about Securonix. Maybe a little bit about the history of the company. I know they've been around for a while, and the vibe of the company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Sachin and Tanuj basically were the founders of technology, or of Securonix, and they actually started the company in around 2008, 2009 is when they started kind of coming up with the idea. And at the time, they actually came over to us at ArcSight, and they were talking to us about how they could support our efforts on users, because they just sold their company to Sun Microsystems, and it was in the identity world. So they were really comfortable with the identity, and we were talking about how we could utilize their expertise. They went off for a few years and came back around 2009, and they started looking at it from user behavior. What is the behavior of users? And they really pioneered the UBA or UEBA market themselves. I mean, they started doing that 2009, 2010. And in 2012, ArcSight, then HP, basically OEM'd their product as far as their user behavior analytics engine. So they've been doing that. And then in around 2016, the customers were real happy with the product they had. They just wanted more memory or more capability of storage of the data. So what we did was we ended up and re-architectured our whole platform. We went from a MySQL database into a Hadoop infrastructure. And in doing that, we basically segued ourselves into what is now known as SIM 2.0. So when you look at SIM 2.0, our roots are in user behavior analytics, or analytics themselves, and then we've added on the ability to mine data or to log data from a data logging perspective. And then what we've done since then is we've built on top of that some of the SIM capabilities where you're looking at correlation. So you've got analytics, correlation, and data, and the ability to do data mining. So those three elements, if you would, are really the core piece of what Gartner is calling SIM 2.0 now. Most of your traditional SIMs have the log management and the correlation capabilities, and those are built on rules, dashboards, reports, and what they call content. That content is Boolean logic that goes, if this happens, do this. So that's where you have to figure out what's going to happen to be able to write a rule. And that's where SIM 2.0 basically transcends that, because what you're looking at is what's normal for everyone, or what's normal for you, what's normal for you and your group, what's normal for your company, and anything that's abnormal, alert and alarm on that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. So you kind of went into the technology a bit, which I like. Let me ask you just kind of like if user wanted to put you in a certain bucket, you'd say you're in the SIM bucket, right? But taking it really to the next level. So so when you say that, you talk about correlation, analytics, and then data mining, and then creating rules. Maybe you can tell us a bit more. What's if we take one step back, what's the typical purpose of putting a SIM product in place, a product like yours, and where really does it leap from what you would call SIM, 1.0 to 2.0?
Right. Well, the original, one of the things where SIM evolved from, and SIM evolved started coming out in about 2006, 2007 is when SIM really started coming out. And the reason is that you have massive amounts of logs from disparate systems, and they were trying to correlate all those different logs so you could actually figure out what was going on in the environment. And that's what that was what SIM's mission was back in 2001. What's happened is, great idea, and what they've done is they've collected a lot of logs, and now what's happened is you've got so much information, you're trying to figure out what is the most important piece of information. And then that's where the analytics pieces come in. Originally, SIMs started out with rules, and those rules you figured out, all right, these are the use cases. These are the rules that, if we say this will help us define that, and then we'll be able to, the important information will bubble to the top. What you've done, and with the capabilities that we've got now as we've evolved, the ability to do terabytes of data, on a daily basis, what you now have is you have too much data for the traditional SIMs to really digest and really make sense of. So that's where the analytics pieces come in. They've all tried to put some sort of machine learning or some sort of analytics in there. And that's where SIM 2.0 evolves from. You've got all of the large SIMs, or the large manufacturers, which is ArcSight, QRadar, Logarithm, Nitro or McAfee, ESM, Exabeam. Those, are the are not Exabeam, but those are the traditional SIMs. Exabeam and Securonix are probably two of the more notable next-gen SIMs. And then what you're looking at there is our roots, both of our roots come from user-based analytics, or what's the user doing. So if Sam Davis normally comes into work at 8 o'clock, leaves at 5 o'clock, and he usually does about 25 lookup. I'm a bank employee, let's say, and I usually do 25 lookups in the customer database. That's normal for me, and that's normal for the 20 other people that work with me. Then all of a sudden I come in an hour early and my user lookups is tripled. Then that becomes not necessarily an event, but it raises my threat index. So my threat index is like, Sam is doing something different, or his machine is doing something different, and that with that level of threat index, once it gets to a certain level, then you alert and alarm, and you have more pertinent information. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. So really, to summarize, the rules that are really the essence of SIM 1.0 are allowing a security person to do that correlation. Say, here's when I want something to be logged. This is what's important for me. If I understand the analytics, really on top of it with SIM 2.0 allows you to use machine learning or other technology or algorithms to figure, to basically say, you know, I want to drill into certain user behaviors, and I want to identify those flags that I want to be raised, because I can't possibly go and look at my log and read terabytes of information and events that might have happened, right?
Pretty much, yeah, exactly. But I'm going to just add one more little piece to it. One of the challenges with when you're competing against the hackers and the people trying to get by you, if you make a rule to do this and they tweak it just a little bit, it won't fire your rule, so they'll be able to get around it. That's where user behavior analytics, and you're looking for what's normal, and then you catalog or baseline what's normal, and then anything that's abnormal, it flags it and it brings it up automatically, not without, you don't have to create a rule to do that.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. So as a business development person, I'd ask you, really, it sounds like your technology could be used by any other SIM vendor to upgrade their product.
Right, so we have, I mean, up to 2016, we basically integrated with all the SIMs, Splunk, ArcSight, QRadar, and Nitro. We integrated with all of those. We, as I said, HP ArcSight OEMs our platform, so they use our platform internally, and it's part of their sales process there. So anybody that wanted to use, and they still do this now to this day, is anybody that has an existing SIM, they're happy with it, it's working, but they want to add the analytics piece to it, then what we're doing is we're pulling additional log data, because we'll pull data like something that they don't normally have. We'll pull information from Active Directory to identify that it's Sam Davis, and that I work for Bob, and I'm in the sales department, and I work in San Francisco. You know, we'll pull in all that additional color into the event, and as the event's coming in, we basically insert that, we call enrich the data. We enrich the data for the analyst to look at. That is helpful for when we'll be taking different logs in that the traditional SIMs wouldn't be normally doing, just because they have never fired on that type of analytics.
Yeah, so you're basically using user information, user profile to enrich the data and make probably better conclusions, because you now can tie to what should a user of a certain type be expected to be doing, what's normal for that kind of user. Do you use any information that you learn from having multiple customers, obviously, like for example, that a telemarketer usually does certain actions, then they don't do other actions or things like that? Do you use any aggregated information?
So no, I mean, so we have our platform, to back up a little bit, our Securonix is a on-prem and a cloud product. So we have Securonix as a service, which is a cloud operated platform that basically we operate for customers. And then we have our partners will do what's known as MDR, Managed Detect Response services on top of our platform. We don't aggregate, or we don't pull that type of information of what customer A and customer B are doing, even though both of them may be retail giants and they both have a telemarketing group. We're not pulling that type of information in. But what we are able to do is when a customer builds a particular use case, they can share that use case and the information around that use case into our repository, and customer B can use that information if they so choose.
Oh,
so
great.
In that manner, the answer is yes. In the other manner, the answer is no. So.
Yeah. So, but kind of template rules can be reused by you with other customers. So that's
exactly.
great.
exactly.
Great, great. Is there any particular compliance, specific aspect of a specific compliance or regulation that you feel is the strongest part where you help the client?
Yeah, I mean, all of the basic HIPAA, those types of compliance, requirements and stuff like that. We have rules and packages that basically populate and give reporting to the customer whether or not they're compliant or not, based on user behavior analytics and stuff like that. So a lot of that, you're able to pull that data, because what we'll do is we'll enter, depending on the customer's appetite, is all what's available. So consider it's a platform. You've got these type of different packages, and if you're trying to use those packages and expand on them, then you're basically going to ask for different information. So in some of our packages, we ask for Active Directory information. We also, in some of them, we ask for the HR information, whether whether or not I've turned in my 2-week notice. That information is populated in our platform. So those types of things we're able to read, and it depends on the customer how much they want to put into the platform and what use cases they want to use. An example of a particular use case where a customer of ours, they wanted to identify their a drug company, and what they ended up, they had a group that they were going to sell this drug off into another thing, and they had a group that they wanted to monitor to make sure nobody was doing anything nefarious. What happened was they put our platform in, we set up the parameters of what they wanted to do, and we ended up finding somebody that actually did try to sell their product off and was convicted by the FBI. So, I mean, that's how capable the platform is when you decide what you're wanting to use, and you can identify the different use cases.
That would be a really good testimonial to have as a salesperson, right?
It is a good testimonial. We can't tell you the client, but
yeah,
the client will, when we need him, that client will get on a phone call and let people know how that happened. So
yeah, that's good. That's good. So given that we talked a bit. We talked a bit about where you move from SIEM 1.0 to SIEM 2.0. Do you think that for smaller companies, maybe the more primitive SIEM is good enough? Do I need your SIEM only from a certain size or amount of data? Is there basically kind of a sweet spot where you feel, okay, this is where really Securonix would do a better job than anybody else that's distinct?
Yeah, so the challenge with the smaller company is they have the same problems as the larger company. They just don't have the talent or the ability, the extra people to try and work on them. So what we found is one of the reasons why we built out our Securonix as a service platform is to give mid-sized companies and not SMB. Anybody that has less than 100 people, I wouldn't try and put a Securonix in there. It was like, there's another couple of ways that you can do that. For one, from a cost perspective, it's not necessarily the thing you want to do, unless, and I'm going to put a caveat, unless you're in some sort of like you're a financial service of some sort, and your data is your money. If your data is your money, then it does make sense to put a platform like Securonix in, or use our platform and use the user behavior analytics. A use case, we have a fraud use case with stock traders. So stock traders will monitor their Google accounts and all their other things. And if they start one thing and then pick up and then start using their Google account, that becomes a red flag.
Yeah.
So I mean, those types of things, it depends on the different area. But if it's just a regular basic company with 100 people or less, I wouldn't try and sell Securonix to them. What we have found is the largest enterprises, the Fortune 500, the Fortune 1000, are a sweet spot for us from a go-to-market and a platform base. And the reason why is they've got sophisticated security teams. They've already done the SIM 1, so they know what the limitations are, SIM 1.0 are, and they're looking for that next level, that next step of being able to go, okay, I've exhausted myself, I'm pulling in all the data that I can pull in, and now I still want to fine tune this a little bit more, or a lot more. What gives us, when they switch completely over to us, not from just a user behavior analytics, but from into a SIM platform, where we're attractive is we want as much data in our platform as possible because it drives our analytics. Whereas Splunk, ArcSight, QRadar, the way that they price their solution is the more data that you put into it, the more it costs. So your cost goes up with the amount of data you put in there. Whereas we do something different. We look at how many users are in your environment. If you have 1,000, 10,000 users, then we're going to charge you for 10,000 users. So next year, you know that you're going to grow to 1,500 users, or 15,000 users. You know that your cost is going to go up 500 people, versus you don't know how much data you're going to be ingesting. Mm-hmm. So it becomes a much more predictable investment into your, that you're doing there. So that's one piece. So we want all this data, as much data as we can, so that we can run analytics on that, and it gives the opportunity for the customer to build even additional analytics on top of it. Let's say from a compliance perspective, let's say the security team has bought the product and they're using it, and you put all the data in the data lake. Well, the compliance team, they really would like to kind of automate some things. They're able to use our platform and build their own application, or they could buy our application, the application that we would sell them, build or buy, and then they can use the same data to pull it from a completely different reason that's not security related.
Mm-hmm. So I see. That's an advantage. And we are hearing, we're starting to hear from vendors. Some of them we might interview in the future, but we're starting to hear that some movement in the SIM market towards pricing that's based on the number of users rather than the amount of data. So I'm assuming this has been an issue for customers for a while, because you don't know really. It's like buying a car when you don't know how much you're going to drive. How do you figure if you need an electrical car or not? So it's like, okay, if I know how much I'm driving and how much I'm paying for gas today, it's probably going to be easier to figure if I need the Tesla or not. Just to simplify it. But maybe just to understand, if I have an analyst on my team, it's very clear that I probably am big enough to use your product, and can use your product. But if I don't have an analyst, you're saying the cutoff is if I have 100 employees or more, right?
100 employees or more. One of the things that we've got, one of our partners actually does very sophisticated customers that are very small, and he sells our Securonix as a service platform, and he sells his own MDR, Managed Detect Response service on top of that. And these customers are in the 50 to 250 employee type customers, but they're in that, financial services or a drug, some sort of a drug company that's basically doing some tech research, that their data is so important to them that they can't be losing their data. So yes. So those are the kind of way that we look at it. Yeah,
makes sense. And we have a lot of people on our platform using Peerlyst that are security analysts that work independently. They're self-employed and they serve multiple companies. Do you have an offering for them, like if they want to use your product to serve multiple clients?
Yeah, that would be exactly what the gentleman that I just talked to you about. He basically, excuse me, he's got a team of 14 people. They're serving as they're loosely connected, and basically they service their clients that way. They use our platform. What we do is Securonix as a service. is we manage the care and feeding of the platform, and all they have to do is we install what we call an ingester at the customer site, and then that pulls the logs up into the platform, and then they just monitor the platform. So they would be,
so really the segregation of that data then is on you.
Correct.
So smaller companies can rely on these analysts as a service, if I may call them that, to support them with your product, but they know that you really are the provider of this segregation, and you are the one providing the assurance that their data is not mixed up with other customers, right?
Correct. Yeah, we have a full multi-tenant. Our platform is fully multi-tenant. You can slice and dice it. You can even within what we call them tenants. Even within a tenant, you can slice and give. I can give you permission where you can only see this little segment of the network, and then I can give somebody else another segment of the network. So with permissions, and we can even do it within a tenant. But each tenant basically has their own data store within the platform.
Makes sense. So do managed service providers like Savvis use your platform already?
Who?
Like Savvis or Rackspace or any other?
So our platform's on AWS. So we have our platform on AWS, and then we have so we've got, we launched our Securonix as a service last year, and we've got about 25 customers on the platform itself, on Securonix as a service. And we've got a large oil and gas, a large retail shoe manufacturer, those types of folks that are on it. So
Great. So a couple of last questions. One is a tough question. If I were a really tiny client, and I looked for something relatively, super cheap, or like price was really my priority because I'm maybe a business of, 25 people, and I want a free SIM or a really cheap SIM, where would you send me?
Well, until AT&T bought Alien Vault, I would have suggested Alien Vault.
Okay.
It depends on where your, what I would do is I'd actually not even steer you to a SIM, I'd steer you to a service. So a service like Arctic Wolf would be one. They basically have they've built their own SIM within their platform. It's not Hadoop, but it's Elk and Elasticsearch. So it's big data. It's a big data. It's a similar, Hadoop's one religion over here. Elk and Elasticsearch is another religion over here as far as how to do it. They provide the service and they have analysts. So I would look for not trying to buy a SIM or go do it yourself. I would invest in something like that. And
okay, great.
And then what they do is they also provide, dashboards and things that your folks you can look at.
Okay, great. I want to ask you for a little favor, and then kind of a final question. A little favor, would you be kind to ask your team to post on our site, like a comment even to the interview, something that tells users who want to learn more about SIM, just some educational content that will help them.
Yep, we will. And we've actually got SIM 2.0 for Dummies, a book out that we just published that we can give you guys and give you guys access to. It's actually a pretty damn good little book. So it's
awesome.
We published that at Black Hat.
That's awesome. I don't know if you know that, but the Peerlyst community actually published dozens of books now, by now. How to prepare for CISSP, how to determine your security path. There's just a lot of books that we offer for free. And if you can get the, SIM for Dummies, if we can get a copy that's downloadable or something like that, that would be awesome.
Yep.
I want to ask you a last question that you can use as you wish.
Okay.
How is we all know that vendors, a part of the struggle of marketers is to represent themselves well in a market that's so noisy. Just in this conversation, you mentioned so many vendors that you need to essentially compete with in such a particular category, right? Can you imagine in, so many more categories, especially when it comes to, for example, the incident response or detection or malware. You have so many real competitors, but also fake competitors, those that use the same terminology but really don't do the same function. So, we both have been in security for a long enough time to understand the problem. So a lot of vendors are kind of getting themselves a bit over the noise by participating in a magic quadrant of Gartner. I want to ask you, how do you feel that Gartner is treating you? Do you feel that you're fairly represented? And is there something that you feel is not coming through for me as somebody who goes to read the magic quadrant for the SIEM market? What do you think about this report? Do you think it represents where the market is really at? Or would you want to add your own perspective?
So we debuted, Securonix did our debut last year in the 2017 SIM MQ. And we actually debuted as the most visionary SIM. So we're the farthest company to the right, period. So we're more visionary than anybody else. So from that perspective, Gartner seems to be in lockstep or concurs with our vision around where SIM 2.0 is going. And I think from that perspective, I think we're quite happy there. So, I mean, I think they've done a good job there. I think one of the things, the biggest challenge that, when all the different players are out there trying to get on the MQ or trying to differentiate yourself, it becomes somewhat difficult if you don't have, the customers to kind of back up what you're saying. And I think Gartner's done a pretty good job of interviewing our customers and being, pretty open with them about what they're trying to do. So we're pretty happy with them at the moment. We really are. Now, I've been in companies over the years that, obviously they didn't have the relationship with Gartner that they wanted and, wanted to do something. But I mean, I think between the analysts, when you look at Forrester, you look at Gartner, I think they're both doing a pretty good job. We're always looking for, newer, new, what we call kind of boutique places that really kind of dig a little deeper and really understand what we're trying to do. So we're always open for that.
Okay, great.
Can I answer your question?
Yeah, totally. I think the biggest complaint about the Magic Quadrant is usually you as a vendor who pays for it needs to do a lot of work. You need to do a lot of work. So, but that's, that comes with complex technology. I think it's a complex market. So it totally makes sense. So I want to thank you for your generous advice. And telling us a bit more about the company. Do you want to say anything else to people on Peerlyst, like how to reach you? Or more questions?
Yeah, anybody can reach me. I'm at sdavis@securonix.com. Welcome anybody if they got any questions around the platform itself, the product and stuff like that. Also, if they've got new technology that they feel that would be helpful in pushing the information into a SIM from a correlation perspective, from an integration perspective, definitely get a hold of me. That's a good way to do it. I'm also on LinkedIn. I think you're gonna point them to my,
people can find you.
Point them to my LinkedIn. But yes, I'm more than willing to chat with anyone that has some questions.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience, Sam, and have a good rest of your day.
Okay, thank you. Talk to you later, Lamar. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.